Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. This is Ghost Talk with 187 PI. Sit back and prepare yourselves for an adventure into the paranormal world with host Shelly Robertson and 187 PI research team. Ghost Talk is broadcasting live from Ohio's most haunted jail. Learn about their ongoing research at the jail and abroad, investigation techniques, and their personal encounters. Here is your host of Ghost Talk and 187 PI founder, Shelly Robertson.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ghost Talk Radio with me as your host, Shelly Robertson. Ghost Talk Radio normally broadcasts live out of Ohio's most haunted jail, the old Paulding Jail, located in Paulding, Ohio. However, due to the present circumstances and the pandemic, travel restrictions, and such, I am bringing you tonight's show live from Indianapolis, my home. Tonight, I have a very fascinating show planned for you. I'll be discussing haunted objects, their location, and some helpful info if you find yourself owning a haunted object. I would like to invite all my listening friends out there to join me in chat at WBHM-DB.com, where you can join in on the conversation, ask me any questions you may have, or share a haunted object story of your own. So, let's just dive right into tonight's topic, shall we? First of all, many objects, they can be or become haunted. The most common items that are found to be haunted is dolls, jewelry, furniture, especially like old rocking chairs and bed frames and headboards, mirrors, paintings, especially self-portraits. Now, the list can be vast, of course. Nearly any item can become haunted. Hauntings just are not limited to people, old houses, locations, or land, okay? So one might ask, how can an object become haunted? Well, let's talk about psychometry for a moment, shall we? Which, I will tell you, psychometry is, in fact, not recognized in the field of science as being valid or being an accepted science. And just as well, many other aspects of paranormal research or study is also not really recognized by the science world, as being valid, right? Now, psychometry is from the Greek word spirit or soul and measure, okay? It's also known as, we'll call it token object reading or psychoscopy. And psychoscopy is a form of extrasensory perception, which is characterized by the claimed ability to make relevant associations from an object of unknown history by making physical contact with the object, okay? So like you have an ability to associate something with an object by touching it or seeing it or smelling it or, with your senses. Now, supporters and many people, they assert that an object may have an energy field that transfers knowledge regarding that object's history. Okay, so that would be meaning, let's say there was a lamp, and that lamp might have soaked up the energy field around it, and to someone who is sensitive to this, they can get pictures of the object's history. Okay, now objects can be haunted by, of course, absorbing the energy of the person who owned the item, or by someone with a strong attachment to the item when they were living, or possibly an item can absorb energy from a tragic event. It's not uncommon to have other energies, whether they're good or they're bad, to attach to an item as well. Okay, and that's where you get into people thinking or having experiences as something being demonic. All right. Now, psychometry is kind of like one of the many forms of scrying. Okay. Let's talk about a non-psychic term. It's a way of seeing something that cannot typically be seen with the eyes, right? Okay, psychometry, it relies on touch and tangible, like physical objects. And sometimes I use a mirror, and I'll take an object and I'll do scrying with a mirror and an object, and I get the pictures and visions about the object in a mirror. Psychometry is reading the energy of a physical object. The reading you'll usually get when you do this will be an object's history, and sometimes, actually, in my experience, a lot of times, the reading will have also to do with the owner of the object. Now, the object will have its own history also, and it will give you an idea of its history and the owner's history. Now, I know this all sounds really confusing, but it's not really that confusing when you pair it to scrying, for those of you who know what scrying is. Now, psychometry is reading the lingering energy and images left behind in an object. Now, people are made up of energy. Our energy leaves an energetic imprint, okay? And it leaves this imprint on everything and everyone we interact with. So, in essence, objects associated with us will hold a vibration of what has been impressed upon that, okay? And it can even possibly be impressed with our auras. And that's how you get these auras on these inanimate objects, right? Now, the other important thing to remember about psychometry is that objects with more meaning, or objects that were used more, will have more energy and therefore give better readings, okay? And it's also true that metal objects, they tend to hold more energy compared to other objects. So let's say, for an example, you have a piece of jewelry, or, a necklace, a wedding ring, that will hold more energy than a pair of gloves that maybe someone only wore one time, right? So now we know we have energy and we're made up of energy, okay? So quite possibly, maybe someone had an item that either they used a lot or the item meant a great deal to them. And so the person's energy force may attach to the item. And that is a way an item can become haunted. Now, let's, for an example, take a look at another way an item can become haunted, so to say. If you have an intelligent, interactive spirit, of a person, a spirit of a person with a direct link, to a specific item, often, let's use this for an example, because this is how we get haunted paintings. Okay, let's say this artist, he painted this portrait, and he just put lots of time and effort and energy, and when he got done with it, the artist just loved it, right? Okay, now, isn't it plausible that if we have the ability, post-death of the physical body, to revisit or keep watch over something we held precious in life, that we would do so, right? So the painting wouldn't necessarily be haunted as such, but the painting would be acting as a conductor or a magnet provoking activity, the paranormal activity, because someone is attached to or, looking after their prized possession, right? So, I hope that makes sense. Another way that an item can become haunted is an item could have soaked up energy from a tragic event, which would cause the residual energy left over following the event, right? This event probably may have caused heightened emotions or whatever, so it will also manifest in that item. Let's think about, for an example, let's think about an execution, a suicide, a murder, something, tragic, and something that would cause a heightened emotion, okay? Residual cases can also be linked to a deep affection for an object as well. So let's say somebody had a wedding ring and it was so special to them, and it was something they wore every single day, okay? This ring could potentially have the ability to absorb and retain an element of its owner's energy, okay? Because remember, we're all energy, and you can't get rid of energy. It just transfers to something else, right? Okay. Now, another way that an item could become haunted, so to speak, is the item could have been used in a ritual, divination, or it may have been cursed by someone, that that had ill intentions, right? So, in the sense of divination, okay, let's talk about that for a moment. An object could be offered for use to a spirit, thus the object becoming a vessel for the spirit to use to communicate. You've heard of things acting as conduits and vessels and such, and that's how you do that. It's through divination. That's through offerings to the spirits, right? Now, what's really interesting is many objects do remain dormant until there's a change in its environment, okay? Usually, that means like a new owner takes it to a new home, or you move it into someone else's home, or it could be simply that something that's always been around in grandma's house, and you inherited grandma's house and you changed everything around. that change in energy can activate the object, right? So that's why I think, too, sometimes with locations, you always hear about construction or remodeling. It causes amplifications of paranormal activity, because you're having a difference or a disturbance in the energy, right? Now, if you do have a haunted object, many different things can happen, of course, such as some of your own possessions, your own items. They could be moving on their own. They could be misplaced. So they could disappear. Or the object itself that you suspect is haunted could move around. It could be, end up in different places. Shadow people or apparitions may manifest. You might have frequent nightmares, and these nightmares could be reoccurring, same type of dreams, right? You could start to experience bouts of bad luck or things happening to your home. Things are breaking down. You might start to have unexplained frequent illnesses. These things could happen right after obtaining the object, or they could happen near the anniversary of the death of the owner of the object or the anniversary of the tragic event. And a lot of times when you're talking about tragic events and such, those are going to end up being more than likely residual hauntings, okay? So now you are at a point of having a haunted object and you would like to know how to remedy the situation, okay? There's a few ways to break the bond of spirit or energy to an object, all right? One way is to have a spiritual cleansing of the object and your home done. Have this done. And you should have someone do that has experience in the matter. That's the safest, best way. Another way is to cleanse the object with salt. And because you've heard that, and I've seen many instances where this works, that salt detours activity, right? And another way that you could break this bond with you and your house and this haunted object is return it to its original place. Take it back or put it back or what have you. And some people say, and I don't have experience in this particularly, but some people say you can bury it in a graveyard or you can burn it. And it said, however, if you burn an object that has negative or evil energy attached to it, that energy could leave the object and attach to you or someone else or even another object. So it is cautioned when burning a haunted object. And I have never burnt a haunted object, so I have no experience with that. So now you got a little bit about how things become haunted, what to expect from a haunting, and kind of how to remedy a haunting. Now let's talk about some of the most haunted items. Now, some of them you've probably heard of, and some of them you might not have, but they're interesting nonetheless. There is this painting, and it's called the Anguished Man painting. And there's this fella, his name is Sean Robinson of Cumbria, England. Well, his grandmother kept this painting in her attic for nearly 25 years before Sean inherited the painting from her. His grandmother told him that the painting was cursed, it was evil, and she said that the painting was painted using blood and paint mixed together, and its creator killed himself right after completing the painting. Now, she claimed to have heard strange and mysterious voices and crying, and also reported to have seen a shadowy figure of a man in her house. Now, these events frightened her so much that she kept the painting in her attic for 25 years, right? So after Robinson took over the painting and he took it to his house, the family started experiencing a similar phenomenon as described by his grandmother. His son fell down the stairs, his wife felt something stroking her hair, and they saw the shadowy man and heard crying. So this fella, Sean Robinson, he created a YouTube video to capture the events occurring at his home. And he placed cameras all over his house. And the video shows banging doors, the painting falling down, smoke. And right now, the painting lies in his basement, and he refuses to sell the painting. And I have watched the videos, and it's very interesting. And with that, folks, we'll be right back with more Ghost Talk after this short break. You are listening to Ghost Talk Radio on WBHM-DB, Birmingham, Alabama.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming. To the skeptic, there will never be enough. Hello everyone. Join Kevin and Jennifer Malik, the host of Paraversal Universe, every Friday here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET FM and The Rift. Log on or tune in as they check out the mysteries found within the 8 categories of the unknown and unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, cryptids and monsters, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, metaphysics, and forbidden archaeology. Listen as Kevin and Jennifer interview the top minds in their respective fields as they share theories and information regarding these unsolved mysteries. For future show and archive information, one can find Paraversal Universe on Facebook, Twitter, and MeWe under various Paraversal Universe headings. So, for excellent talk radio about the unknown and unexplained, check out Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, Ltd., and produced by WBHM-DB.com.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Ghost Talk Radio with me as your host, Shelly Robertson. Tonight, I am talking about haunted objects. And if you missed the first part of the show, no worries. You can catch the full show archive on Spreaker, Google Play, iTunes, and iHeartRadio at your leisure. I'd like to invite you all to join me in our interactive chat room at WBHM-DB.com, where you can tell me any haunted object story you might have. Or if you just have a question or you want to chat, feel free. Come on in. Now, this next thing let's talk about is this haunted wedding dress that's kept in a room in Baker Mansion. Okay, so this is really an interesting piece. The Baker Mansion is an historic home located in Altoona in Blair County, Pennsylvania. Okay. It was built between 1844 and 1848, and it's a 3-story dressed stone building in the Greek Revival style. So you can imagine it looks fascinating. Okay. Now, the Baker Mansion was originally home to this iron master, Elias Baker, and his family. Okay. Baker purchased the nearby Allegheny Furnace in 1836, and he was in a partnership with his cousin named Roland. Okay. Elias soon brought his wife, Hetty, and their 2 sons, David and Sylvester, and they came from Lancaster County. And they came to what they described as a tolerable mansion house near the furnace. Okay. Shortly after they arrived, a daughter, Anna, was born. A 4th child, Margarita, was born in 1839, but she died of diphtheria at the age of 2. Okay. So, in 1844, Elias Baker bought out his cousin's share in the furnace, and that same year, he contracted with a Baltimore architect to design him a new home. Well, work got underway on the mansion in 1945, but there were many problems and delays, and it wasn't ended up completed until 1849. Now, the cost to build that mansion was $15,000. I wish I could build a mansion today for $15,000, right? Now, of course, the cost overruns coupled with falling prices for iron that pushed Mr. Baker to the brink of financial ruin, as you can imagine, before the house was finished. Well, Mr. Baker was a determined businessman, and he pressed ahead, and he achieved his dream house, right? And he lived in it for 15 years until his death in 1864. And Hetty, his wife, she remained a widow until her death in 1900. Well, furthering the story, getting to the meat of everything, Elias's daughter, Anna, she loved this fella who was a local steel worker and was forbidden from marrying Anna because he was of a lower class. Okay. So since Anna was never allowed to marry the man, she died like an old maid in 1914. Okay. Now, when the mansion was converted into a museum, a wedding dress was kept that it gained a ton of popularity for being haunted. Many visitors visiting the museum have claimed to have seen the dress move or dance within the glass case. It is believed that the ghost of Anna is haunting the wedding dress. The ghosts of both Elias Baker and his daughter Anna have been spotted in the mansion by many frightened staff and several guests. So that is amazing. I guess, heartbroken, she attached to that wedding dress. Now, this next amazingly haunted object, I know everybody knows about this object, but nonetheless, it's still fascinating. And it's Annabelle, the possessed doll. And Annabelle is, if you don't know, but you should know, I mean, it's been in movies and everything, you know, movies based on this doll. Okay. Annabelle is an allegedly haunted rag doll, and it's the world's most haunted object, right? And it resides in the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. Now, since the passing of Lorraine, I'm not sure. I know there for a while the museum was still going to operate, but I don't know if they still are operating now or not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on with the museum now. Of course, the haunted doll has inspired movies like The Conjuring and Annabelle, of course. And according to the claims by Ed and Lorraine Warren, a student nurse was given the Raggedy Ann doll in 1970, and it behaved strangely. A psychic medium told the student that the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a dead girl named Annabelle Higgins. The nurse and her roommate, at first, they nurtured and they accepted the doll, but they became frightened by its malicious behavior later on, okay? So they tried to throw it out. The doll would, show back up. And anyways, they ended up contacting the Warrens, who took the doll to the museum, and they called it demonically possessed, okay? So the Warrens had built a special glass case for the doll where it resides. And a couple of instances about the haunting about this doll is there was a motorcyclist who visited the museum along with his girlfriend, and they were taunting and teasing the doll even after they were warned by Ed, okay? So on their way home, the motorcyclist lost control of his bike and he crashed into a tree and was killed. And the Warrens have claimed that the doll was responsible for the death of the motorcyclist. And there's also other accounts of people being harmed and injured by this doll after have been in contact with it. And they don't let anybody touch it. It's not allowed out of the case, Next, we have an interesting haunted object, and it is called the Chair of Death. Now, this is located near Sandhutton in North Yorkshire. That's England. And it's located at the Busby Stoop Inn, which is a public house with a tavern. And the tavern is also considered haunted, okay? The activity seems confined to this, what they call the Chair of Death, that they keep in storage, okay? The Chair of Death was the favorite chair of this fella, and I do believe he worked at the pub, this fella named Thomas Busby, who was convicted in 1702 for the murder of his father-in-law, Daniel Audie, who he supposedly strangled for sitting in his favorite chair after an argument about Thomas's wife, who was also Daniel Audie's daughter, and her name was Elizabeth. Okay, so on his way to the gallows in 1702, he asked to stop by the pub because he wanted to have a drink in his favorite chair. That was his last wish or whatever. And after he had his drink, he put a curse on the chair, claiming that anyone who sat in it would be haunted and soon die. So it remained in the pub for centuries, and people were dared to sit in it, of course, right? And there's lots of hauntings regarding this chair, like during World War II, airmen from a nearby base, they made the pub a hot spot, and the chair became a hot seat for those airmen. And people noticed that the ones who sat in it would never come back from the war. And then in 1967, 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat in it, and while they were driving back, they crashed into a tree and died. And then a few years later, 2 bricklayers decided to try it, and that afternoon, the one who sat in it, he fell to his death, okay? The cursed chair has apparently killed every person who sat in it, no matter what. Every person who sat in that chair has died. Some people include a roofer who sat in it and died after the roof he was working on collapsed. A cleaning woman stumbled into it while mopping and was later killed by a brain tumor. Eventually, the pub owner moved it into the basement, hoping that no one would sit in it. But one day, this delivery guy was in the basement and he sat in it, and an hour later, he crashed his truck and died. So after that death, the landlord asked the local museum to take it. And to ensure that no one sat in it again, at the museum, they hung the chair 5 feet from the ground. So, although people are now safe from sitting in the chair, news stories still come about, about the chair's power. There was this one local fella, he was telling about a driver who had picked up an airman, and the airman asked to go to the bathroom. So they stopped at the Busby Stoop Inn, and while waiting, the driver sat in the chair. Well, when the airman didn't return, the driver left without him, and the angered airman had to make his own way back to the base. So when he got back, the airman grabbed a building brick, and he ended up smashing the head of the driver and killing him. So gruesome. And it seems as though because the museum had made it nearly impossible to sit in it, as they hung it 5 feet from the floor, its killing days were over, right? It is said that for some time prior to death, time varies in all cases, I guess, the people who sit in the chair, they also experience hauntings and have other experiences that include extreme itching, paranoia. They hear things, they have confusion, items are being moved, and written warnings on mirrors and walls, about the person's imminent death, in addition to many other strange happenings. And this is prior to their death, right? So, the fella, Thomas Busby, he was executed at the Sandhutton Crossroads beside the inn, which was the Busby Stop Inn, right? The site of the execution, it was just opposite the pub at the crossroads there. But now today there's a roundabout there. Excuse me. Well, that area of roadway is reported to be haunted by Busby's ghost. But from what I gather, what I could find now is that the pub is no longer open. So the best information I could find, it's not open anymore. It had changed hands and then it closed. This next interesting item is the Valentino's cursed ring. Okay, so Rudolph Valentino, he was a famous Italian-born American actor, and he acted in 7 silent films during his career, right? So before the release of his last 2 movies, he came across this silver ring that had a semi-precious stone in it, and he found this at a jewelry store in San Francisco. So Valentino liked it a whole lot, and he was really anxious to buy the ring But the jeweler of the jewelry store, the jeweler claimed that the ring was cursed. Well, this made Valentino more interested in buying the ring, okay? So he bought the ring, and he wore the ring during the filming of the movies, the Young Raja, and that movie turned out to be a failure. And then he wore it in his last movie, The Son of the Sheik, soon after which Valentino died of acute peritonitis. And he was still wearing this ring when he died, okay? So this ring, it was passed on to actress Paula Negri, who was a close friend of Valentino, right? She fell ill shortly afterward, but she recovered. Now, her career didn't recover, of course, but she didn't actually die. Now, the ring was passed on to Russ Colombo, which was a younger sister of Paula. And, Russ died in a shooting accident. So Colombo's friend, Joe Casino, was the next owner of the ring, who placed the ring in a glass case, all right? And Joe Casino, he was intrigued and highly tempted and chose to wear the ring. And he died in a traffic accident immediately after putting on the ring. So then Casino's brother Dell was the next owner, who put it in a safe after wearing it for some time, okay? Now, this fella named James Willis, he robbed the ring from the safe, and he was shot dead by a policeman while the ring was still in his pocket. And the ring was placed back in Casino's safe. So a small-time director fella named Edward Small, he borrowed the ring, who had planned to use it in a movie on Valentino's life, a movie about his life. So this unknown man who was on set, his name was Jack Dunn, he wasn't yet a star or anything, he wore it during the test shootings of the scene, and he died shortly after of a rare blood disease. Now, today, the ring is in a safe deposit box in a Los Angeles bank. It seems as though everyone who touches it either dies or has something horrific happen to them. And with that, folks, we'll be right back with more Ghost Talk after this short break. You are listening to Ghost Talk Radio on WBHM-DB, Birmingham, Alabama.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
To Ghost Talk Radio with me as your host, Shelly Robertson. If you missed the first part of the show, no worries. You can catch the full show archive on Spreaker, Google Play, iTunes, and iHeartRadio at your leisure. I would like to invite you all to join me in chat at WBHM-DB.com, where you can ask any questions or tell any stories you have. So this next item, haunted item on the list that we have, is called the Conjure Chest. Now, sometime back in the 1840s, there was this slave owner named Jacob Cooley, and he owned a large plantation outside Frankfort, Kentucky, okay? Coolie slaves, okay, they considered him a cruel and evil taskmaster, right? Now, once Cooley learned his wife was pregnant, he wanted a chest built for his newborn. So he ordered a slave named Jose, who was a skilled carpenter, to build this chest. Jose complied, and he built a beautiful chest of drawers for Cooley's baby, right? Unfortunately, as you can imagine what's coming next, Cooley didn't approve of the final product. Angered Cooley beat Jose like severely. And Jose, he died several days later, okay? So, Jose's murdered in with the other slaves, as I'm sure you can imagine. So, among the slaves was this conjure man that had practiced spells and curses in his homeland, and now, of course, in America. Okay? So the slaves wouldn't allow Jose's death to go unpunished, right? So a group of the slaves got the chest away long enough to sprinkle the dried owl blood and chant over the chest, right? The conjure man then placed a curse on the chest. The curse meant death to future generations of the Cooley family, right? Now, Cooley didn't know anything about the curse. Had he known, many people say he probably wouldn't have believed it, okay? So, anyways, although Cooley didn't like the chest, he still placed it in his unborn baby's room, right? Cooley soon became the father of a new son, but any joy from Jacob Cooley or his wife was short-lived, as the child died within days of birth and became the first victim of the Cooley curse, okay? Now, it is believed the curse killed at least 16 people, and here are a few deaths associated with this curse. One of Cooley's sons was stabbed to death on his 25th birthday. His clothes were once in the chest. The chest was given as a wedding gift to a couple. The bride soon died after from an illness, and the groom died in an accident. There was this author, and her name was Virginia Carey. She acquired the chest, and she used it to store her first baby's clothing. The baby died. Carey's son Stanley, he placed his hunting clothing in the chest, and he was shot. Now, Carey requested help from a servant to remove the curse from the chest. The ritual to remove the curse involved a dead owl and leaves from a willow tree. So, after this ritual, supposedly the curse was lifted, right? Now, if you're wondering if the chest is real or whatever became of the cursed chest, you can easily find out because it is cataloged with the Kentucky Historical Society. The chest of drawers is called the Conjure Chest, and the catalog number is 1980.20.1, and the society has had the chest since 1976, and it is not kept on display for the public, okay? Now, this next item, it's pretty interesting, and we're going to go to the Myrtles Plantation because there's a mirror there that is very haunted. And the Myrtles Plantation is a historic home in Louisiana. And as you can imagine, there's lots of haunted places in Louisiana, okay? This plantation, it was built in 1796 by General David Bradford, okay? The house is considered as one of America's most haunted homes. The plantation house is rumored to be on top of an ancient Tunica Indian burial ground. So that gives you pause already, right? And the house is supposedly haunted by at least 12 ghosts. It is often reported that 10 murders have taken place in the house. And at the time, every now and then, back then when Bradford built it and Bradford lived in it and moved in it and everything, at that time, sometimes he would accept students of the law as his apprentices, okay? So there was this one student, his name was Clark Woodruff. Well, Clark Woodruff married Bradford's daughter, Sarah. Okay, so now we're getting into something interesting, right? Now, one of the main hauntings that surrounds the plantation is the story of a slave girl named Chloe, who was allegedly killed by other slaves for poisoning one of the meals prepared for Woodruff and his family. So, the legend says this meal directly resulted in the death of Sarah and her 2 children. So, visitors to the Myrtles have reported seeing Chloe wandering around the plantation, and sometimes Chloe's accompanying by the sound of crying children. All right. Not to get off target, but there's also a spot on the floor there at the Myrtles that supposedly it can never be cleaned. 3 Union soldiers allegedly broke into the home in an attempt to rob it, and they were shot in the parlor. And this spot is reportedly the same size as a human body, and it's where supposedly the soldier fell. So, let's get back to the mirror located in the house. And this mirror is known to hold the spirits of Sarah and her 2 children. Sarah was the wife of Clark Woodruff, who managed the house after the death of General David Bradford in 1808. And according to customs of that time period, mirrors were covered after a death, because it's superstition, that the spirits could get trapped in the mirrors, right? So the mirrors were covered. But the Myrtles plantation mirror, it was left uncovered, and due to that, it trapped the spirits of Sarah and her 2 children. And people have reportedly seen handprints just appear on the mirror, even after it's been cleaned and whatnot. So, I don't know. Maybe I'd like to check that mirror out and see if I saw anything in it, especially since I do scrying. So, now let's talk a little bit about what's going on at the old Paulding jail. Well, today, nothing, of course, but we are getting geared up for the reopening of Ohio, folks, and we are excited about that. We've been doing the annual spring cleaning, and we've been getting everything in order to allow guests to come back to the jail. And of course, due to the pandemic and Ohio rules and regulations, and of course, our desire to keep everyone safe and healthy, right? Near the end of May, we will be doing very small investigations at the jail with no more than 10 people on site. We will have hand sanitizing stations set up, and we will be giving each guest a Stay Safe pack, which will include a personal bottle of hand sanitizer along with a reusable face mask, as a face mask will be required at the jail for the time being. We're going to have to wear them anyways. Governor DeWine says everybody at places have to wear them. So anyways, it's just going to become face mask is going to become the new normal for the time being at the jail. And for those who wish to visit, who don't have a face mask, no worries. We will provide one to you free of charge. And here's something exciting. Our hand sanitizer comes to us, compliments of Collier Distillery in Tennessee. So thanks to them down there in Tennessee. So hopefully, real soon, we can get back to some sort of normal, because I know there's a lot of you people out there who want to come visit, and we want you to come visit. It will be a little longer before we are able to start up the escape games, simply because of the social distancing rules that are being kept in place, and during gameplay that's really hard to adhere to those standards. So we won't be starting up Jailbreak until you're allowed to have more gatherings and social distancing has been kind of relaxed. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do those for a while, but I'll let you know, folks, what's going on here at our fabulous network, WBHM-DB. We have some fantastic shows by some amazing hosts, and they have interesting guests. And all the shows are at 8 p.m. Eastern, so you've got something to do on these days at 8 p.m., right? Sunday nights, we have Fate Magazine Radio with show host Kat Hobson. And Monday nights, we have a Paranormal Pride show with host Denise Pridemore. Wednesday nights, we have Paranormal Experience with host Kat Hobson. You'll want to be sure to tune in to those shows as well, because they got some great information, great guests, interesting topics, and probably most of you already listened to them, but anybody new tuning in, hey, you got something to do 4 nights a week. So anyhow, I really want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to my live broadcast tonight. I appreciate it. Without you folks, this show wouldn't happen, of course, and without this wonderful network and the show producer. And I want to also especially thank everyone out there for doing your important part during this trying pandemic time. And I know everyone is so anxious to get back to some sort of normal. I mean, I am, although I still want to stay safe. I want everyone else to stay safe, but I know everyone's anxious. So I would like to wish everyone a happy evening and a very happy weekend. And then everyone stay safe and stay healthy. Good night, friends.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Kat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? You see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watch a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.